Thanks for coming, everyone. First thing on the agenda is to approve meeting minutes of February 22nd, 24. Do I have a motion?
Moved.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Accept the meeting minutes from March 7th for review. Thanks, Scott. Second.
Oh, second.
Thanks, Mo. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. On to the police department and animal control. Come on down. We'll try to go easy on you.
These are daunting. We'll hear you.
Good evening, everyone.
So, Tim.
Yes.
Right? Tim's joining us for the first time. Welcome.
Thank you.
So usually the way we do it is to kind of go through really the changes from last year's,
Rather
if you don't
than every
mind,
line item, yeah.
right? Or anything else that you need to speak to in the budget.
So really, the only changes we're gonna have were contractual due to the bargaining unit. So our overtime lines went up 6% because the personal, the wages went up 4%. But other than that, the only increase I made was to training.
Okay.
But we went up very incrementally because our longevity line's down. So our longevity line is down due to the transition. So it's kind of a net zero. I mean, we're still going to be under. But I did add the training line just because we are doing more training. But other than that, everything was pretty much just salary based. There were no increases to any other lines.
Okay.
Well,
Great.
not much there, huh?
Yeah.
We wanted an easy one. We wanted to grease lightning.
You gotta start off with easy,
Right.
then go hard.
Well, we want you to get what you need.
No,
Right.
we're very reasonable. We're very comfortable. I mean, I'm sure as policing progresses, there are things and programs that we want to change and do. But it's not going to be a quick fix, and it's not going to be, I don't want to sticker shock anyone either. So over time, we can address these issues. But first year, there's really nothing we would need that we don't have at the moment.
Okay. All right.
What line is the training that went up?
So in service,
Thanks, sir. Because I saw training down below at 0, so I was like, well, I'm missing something. So,
yeah. So the in service line, and truthfully, that because we are doing a lot more in service on site. So the academies offer required courses, but they're not offering all of the required courses for us to maintain accreditation. So, for instance, we had to do defensive tactics on our own. We've been doing a lot of Asher training on our own, and obviously we have to pay for that. So.
Okay. Thank you.
What is that second training?
Asher is active shooter training.
Oh, okay.
So again, just to kind of catch up with the times, to be on par with all the other communities, this is a training that we definitely need.
Okay.
Sadly, very
And your
important,
staffing levels seem appropriate?
For this year, absolutely. Again, because we are in transition, we're losing some. We are going to be bringing some to fill voids, but a lot's going to hinge on civil service.
Okay.
So once we figure out where we're going to stand with that after town meeting, even if we wave the wand and be able to be actionable on it the day after town meeting, the process is going to take us until October. So we're very, very comfortable where we're at right now.
Okay.
Good.
All right. Any other questions on this budget?
No.
No? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I think we have animal control.
Animal control is going to be very easy. We're not changing it from last year. Everything is the same, no zeros. I mean, all zeros. We're in a contract with JMK9. They come in, they pick the dog, they store the dog. We have a very workable agreement with Jenny, so I can't see any changes to that. If anything, this is a very generous contract on her end, so I would like to keep things the way they are.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Any questions on this budget?
No.
No. That was easy.
That was.
You need that button.
I'll sharpen the knives for next year.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Nice meeting everyone.
Nice to
Nice
meet
meeting
you.
Later.
Nice to meet you. Who's next? Let's see. Community Preservation Committee. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Fine, thank you. What's going on in your area here?
So hopefully everybody has my memo. So the CPC met earlier this month, and we viewed 2 projects that are going to be presented to town residents. One is the continuation of research into veterans in the town by the Veterans Affairs Committee, and they're researching all the veterans, and then they're going to be purchasing plaques to put onto the gravestones. So they were asking for another $5,000 this year. And then Department of Public Works is doing a little bit more permitting and engineering for an ongoing project with the fish ladder in town. And they're asking $84,200. And they're also getting other matches too. So this is a big project. But they're asking for $84,200 from the CPC.
What is a fish ladder?
It's something down the way, and
It's in the
for
park,
the
isn't it?
fish. Yeah, it's for the fish that
area.
can
So
go
the
up.
fish can migrate.
Yeah.
Oh,
So that
Yeah.
when they come from the sea, they
Like
can
the
actually
herring
make
line?
it up
I guess.
Yeah.
river.
Similar to down in Middleborough
This thing's gonna be
on
spiffy.
44.
Oh,
Really?
okay.
Have you seen it?
No, I
Yeah.
have not. I have
Similar.
not. One thing I didn't mention last night that I wanted to mention is this year, there's a warrant going in for the last payment for Friendship Park, so that will be paid off as of this year. Yep.
That would be great.
And as you can see, I don't get, because the CBC fund is revolving all the time, where they're bringing in money and paying things out. So I don't have an actual balance like as of today, but based on what came in from residents and the town this year, going forward, we'll have at least $309,000 going forward to fund projects.
Excellent.
So,
Yeah, that's great. Any questions on this?
Mhm.
Thank you so much.
thank you.
Thank you again.
Have a good night.
Who's next? Let's see.
Friends in the rear.
Southeastern Regional.
He's looking over his shoulder.
Welcome, welcome.
Everybody has the whole package.
You have it? All right, awesome.
Do we?
So everybody, this is Southeastern Regional and Holly's the superintendent, I'm sure they'll introduce themselves. If you want to pull out this packet right here, this
Sure.
is their
That one?
presentation. Right there.
Great.
So thank you for having us. I am Holly McClannon. I'm the superintendent at Southeastern, and I think many of you know Mark Morris, who's our assistant superintendent of finance.
Many years.
Yes, yes.
So
So welcome.
thank you. So I'll be brief, but please interrupt or feel free to ask clarifying questions as we go along. So our budget this year represents a 6.2% increase.
You have it. That's a different package than what we're presenting
Oh,
tonight.
oh.
So that's also our budget, but this is been approved. by
That's the
school committee.
summary.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
I'll pass it.
Thank
This
you.
will
No,
be a
I'll keep
little
passing.
bit
Keep
easier for
going.
you to
Yeah.
follow along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, everybody can just flip to here. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like
Oh, all right, it's in the
It's fine,
packet.
but yeah, if you want to follow along,
Thank you.
keep going.
Scott,
Yeah.
you on?
Sure. Thank you.
It'll be a little.
Just paper.
Thank you.
Poor tree.
Okay,
No
so
worries.
we're going on this page here?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so our budget this year is a 6.2% increase over last year. That's primarily driven by increases in enrollment. We are up 40 students this year at Southeastern. And as we talked a little bit before the meeting began, we continue to grow. We expect we'll have more moderate increases in the years to come.
I'm sorry, you're taking 40 more West
We
Bridgewater?
had 40 total student,
okay.
40 additional students overall in the school
overall,
district.
Okay.
Yes.
I thought that was a lot.
That would be a very large increase for West
Right.
Bridgewater. So, and then in addition to the foundation aid, we saw a big increase in transportation. This year, we had to go out to bid again for our 3-year contract, and the increase was almost 28%. We were fortunate that the last time we bid was before the escalation in fuel cost and staffing cost and everything else. So, and as you know, we are supposed to get 100% reimbursement for regional transportation. we don't. If you have any advocacy with your legislators, I would remind them gently of their obligation to fund regional transportation. So you do see a large increase there in the cost of transportation. For capital acquisitions and improvements, that's mostly related to our MSBA bond, but also just general capital maintenance of the building. We have always offset that to keep that at $192,000 for a total assessment to all of our communities combined. And so we did that again this year. We pulled some money out of E&D to keep that as $192,000, bringing the budget to $39,269. And then after that, we need to add on the payments for our bond for our Performing Arts Center. So that brings the total local assessments to just over $15 million. And then if you'll go to the next page, you'll see the district enrollment broken down by community. And you will see that West Bridgewater is the last row in that group. And you'll see that you did have a 10 student increase this year. So it was nice to see. Yeah. So that's a 15% increase in enrollment for you. On the following page, you will see the local assessment broken down by community. And again, you see West Bridgewater there at the bottom of the first chart with your minimum contribution, your portion of the bond payment, your portion of transportation, and the net capital cost for a total assessment of $1,008,308, which is an increase of $158,224 over last year. But that is, again, primarily driven by your enrollment combined with the transportation increase. And then the next page is just for information purposes. Every student that comes to Southeastern costs about $23,000 in change to educate. The percentage that each community pays towards their students is a little different based on the Chapter 70 formula. So you can see West Bridgewater is kind of right in the middle of our communities. You pay a little bit more per student than some communities and a little bit less than others. So, and then the rest of it is just to show you that Southeastern is continuing to operate at net school spending, meaning that our budget is the minimum we're required to spend for our students. I've been committed to that. Superintendent Lopes before me felt very strongly that we should operate at net school spending to be responsible partners to all of our school community partner districts. I believe that as well, and that's what we're going to continue to do.
How do you define that again, net school spending?
It is the minimum amount that the state tells us we are required to spend.
It's a foundation.
Foundation budget.
Interesting.
Yes, foundation.
And you're sticking to that.
Sticking to it.
You have, one of the big drivers in this town is special education.
Yes.
Do you find that's a large part of your budget too, and increasing?
It is increasing. We're at 15.3% of our students are are students with disabilities. Okay. But what we're finding is they are, not only are we getting more students, but they have greater and greater needs.
So do you see staff increases?
Yes. A big part of our budget, as you will see in the budget presentation that you originally had, is that we're going to use a large part of our increase to fund additional special education teachers.
Seems to be the dilemma.
Yeah. And English language learning teachers.
They're just going to ask you that.
Yeah.
That's huge. In West Bridgewater. Keeps growing.
Yep.
And
Us
I
too.
can't even tell you where it's at right now.
Yeah, we've seen it.
Pretty level this year.
So 1 out of every 4 students at our school speaks English as a second language, but they're at different levels of proficiency. So when you're talking about English language learners, there are folks that are not at a base level of English proficiency. So that's only about 5% of our student population, but we are seeing that grow in terms of absolute newcomers coming in with very little English into our high school. And they just require support. So you see that in our budget.
And you can measure all those levels of aptitude as you go along to make sure that you're
That's right.
doing what you have to do.
That's right.
You have to, right?
You have to. Yeah. Yeah. And you have to teach all teachers strategies for teaching EL students, because you can't have an ESL teacher in every classroom.
That's right.
So there's professional development, there's just changing the mindset about teaching and learning,
So
so.
this aligning the budget with student need literacy, is that what you're speaking to, the English language learners, or just
Well, that
reading in general?
Reading in general,
32%?
yeah, 1/3 of our students are reading below grade level.
Wow.
Isn't that
Mhm.
sort of across the board?
It
too?
is.
The reading
Yeah,
is below where it should be across the state.
it is.
Wow.
Mhm.
That's stunning.
Mhm.
Okay. Any other questions on this budget? Thank you.
Great, well,
Thank
thank
you so
you, and
much.
thank
Thanks
you
for
to
coming in
West
again.
Bridgewater for your
Good night.
support of our
Me
schools.
too. Thank
Thank
you.
you. See you later.
Have a great evening. Okay. Well, I don't know. Where are we? Oh, we had a schedule, huh?
We are, and I texted the superintendent, he said he was gonna head over, so.
Okay. Do you wanna go through some of these smaller ones, maybe?
Sure.
Okay.
So, if it's okay, I wanna skip the Board of Selectmen's budget for a second, come back to it at the end. But I'll go through all the others and answer any questions that you might have.
Yeah.
Oh, come on in, Mark.
Oh,
There he is.
Oh, if you wanna just do
He
this.
ran
one.
Yeah,
across
let
the
me-
parking lot.
Thank you for coming. I know it's a little early, so I appreciate you
Much better.
coming a
Yeah.
little early.
Yes.
Given the
We're,
choice,
we're a
right?
World Culture Night at the high school. Next year you have to go.
How's that?
All the best
World
food you
Culture?
can get for $6.
Really?
All great food from all around the
You
world.
didn't-
And you didn't bring us anything?
I tried.
No
I
snacks?
was rushing to get here.
Did you do did you spend all day cooking?
I did none of the cooking. I just did the eating, but not too much.
Is it your staff that does the cooking?
No, it's, families bring it in, or they get
Really?
some from local restaurants.
Interesting.
Nice.
It's really good though. It's really,
Nice.
and they get some entertainers and singers. They do a induction ceremony for the honor society after. so
Nice.
it's
So
a
is
nice
that
event.
open to everybody?
Very
Yeah,
nice.
absolutely,
Nice.
yes. I'll make sure I send some next
Yeah,
time.
let me know.
It was really good. Yeah, and it's
Well,
perfect in
welcome.
between, so I don't have to go home.
Thanks for coming.
You're very welcome.
Where do you want to start?
I mean, I can go through, you have copies of the presentation.
Yeah.
I can forward it through this actually. If someone wanna be the forward. You sat in the wrong seat. Just for that, I mean, everyone else has it. Since you have the slides, I'll go through them. If you have any questions, please stop us.
Okay.
And then we'll have questions, any questions you have at the end, we can certainly answer those as well.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
So we are a mission-driven school. That's how we build our budget through our school and district mission. When we build our budget, we look at our priorities, our school and district priorities. We look at our goals, my educator goals, the teacher's goals, the administrator goals, and the school improvement goals. We look at the needs of our kids, which include the social and emotional needs and the academic needs. So they all play together to build a budget that meets all the needs of our kids and of our staff. Over the past few years, I think we've gone from a essential budget to a more proactive budget where we're trying to address the needs within our district. We're very thankful for the staffing that we've received over the years. It's really added to the education of our students, so we do appreciate that. And we hope to move forward with being very proactive in addressing the areas of greatest need, and I'll talk a little bit about those in a moment. In terms of some of the stats we've shown over the years, we look at our trends for our high needs students. Defined by the state, high needs are our special education students, our multilingual learners, as well as our low income students. So over the past 5 years, we've seen a pretty steady increase. We're up a little bit from last year, but not as drastic as in years past. But we're still, over a third of our students are considered high needs. In terms of student population, we have been going up. We had a smaller growth again this year, but we do anticipate larger growth in the future as those homes continue to be rebuilt and apartments and so forth. But our West Bridgewater population went up about, I think, 25 students. Our overall student population only went up a couple from last year, but we are continuing to see growth in town.
So did you have to adjust the school choice to account for the 25?
So we took fewer this year, actually fewer than we budgeted for. We budgeted for 260. We're under 250 right now. In this year's budget, the FY25 budget, we budgeted 250. We have a smaller number graduating as seniors this year, and we feel we'll have some openings at the middle senior high school only. Really at the elementary level, there really are no openings. But in grade 6 going into grade 7, we have 98 students. We're able to add some students possibly there, and we definitely will lose students to Southeastern. We average about 20 a year, a couple to the agricultural schools, a couple to private schools. So once again, that will be our biggest grade for adding students. Then we have some.
You said we have an additional 10 going to the.
Southeastern?
Yeah.
We may.
So
I mean,
total is 75.
75. Okay.
They just left.
I looked over the past 3 years, and we've averaged. I think we had 20 last year, 17 the year before, and about 18 the year before that. So or 21. So we're right around 20 students we lose a year. So we'll be able to fill those spots in, and we have a few more spots open. Grades next year's grades 10 and 11.
Yeah, so just recall that 10 increases net. So if 8 graduate and you're up 10, now you're 13.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we know, and I'll talk more about that. Our choice numbers are going to continue to be decreasing. We use the money for our school contributions, but we're not going to add students to overcrowd our classrooms. That's why pretty much at the elementary level we're closed.
And what's the ideal class size? Probably varies by grade, I would think.
It does. I actually looked today, and I did the numbers for grades kindergarten through grade 6, and the average is 22. Some of the grade levels are at 20, or just over 20. A couple are at 23, 24, close to 25. So the average of 22 sounds really good, but some of those classes that are 25 or so, that's getting pretty high for elementary. Luckily, our younger ones are the lower ones. It's more of our upper elementary that have the higher numbers.
Is that, when you see 25 per class, is it like a standard that everyone uses as an ideal? Or?
I think you want to stay under that, ideally. And I will tell you, especially at the Howard School, those rooms tend to be the smallest in our district. So when you're in there and you're looking at 25 kids in there, it's a little bit different than at the middle senior high school, where the spaces are bigger. And what we want to do is be cautious when we add students, even if we're adding them into grade 7, because I'm not concerned as much about next year, because we could certainly add 10 kids into 7th grade if we really wanted to, but I'm concerned about the growth over the next 4 years. We're going to get organic growth within the town, so that's going to put us at a deficit. So we're going to look hard to even see if we're going to open grade 7 or just take maybe a few siblings, because we don't want to create our own problem by continuing to add. So we're aware of that, and we know that there is a cost associated with it, but we want to be as transparent as possible sharing that. We'll add to the point we can. High school is a good spot to add because you only have them for those 4 years. But if you add them in 1st grade, you get them for a long time. Special education, always a big piece of our budget. About 1% of our student population is placed out of the district, and those are our most needy students, and they're appropriately placed through their IEP and through the appropriate processes they go through with their team. But that 1% equals about 14% of our overall school budget. Transportation continues to be a growing cost.
So can I ask you a little bit about that?
Sure.
Sorry, about the out of district. So as people, I guess, would age out of that, right? But then you find that somebody new comes along, and so it stays pretty stable.
Correct. We are required to educate them until they're 22 years old.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely, we do have students age out, but we're having more and more either move in or they're live in West Bridgewater and they turn 3, so we become responsible for them once they turn 3.
I have a question, because when I was looking at the budget, I didn't understand the difference between what was listed as actual amounts expended versus the budget request. The budget request number was big, and actual spending was low. and I don't know, on the,
No, the cover
Sheet,
sheet, the,
yeah.
you're talking about the main
Yeah.
cover sheet?
So you're
I just
looking-
don't understand.
Sure.
So what, you're looking at like FY 23,
Mhm.
2 years ago was the
Right.
last actual
Oh, it's the last, okay.
year. Yeah, because we're in fiscal year 24
24.
now and we're budgeting for
So that's the
25.
actual dollar amount that
So
was
we're
spent.
2 years out.
Out.
And again, it is a bit of a moving target when you have students coming in, coming out, move-ins.
Yeah, how do you project that?
It's hard. To be honest,
You
it's not
don't.
easy. You have
You
to,
don't.
you have to use your best judgment. You have to look at, the students that you have within the district, their needs. We're always trying to bring students back in as well. If we can educate them in the West Bridgewater School, that's ultimately our
Right.
goal. That's
Mm.
best. So some students have been placed out, but when they get to a certain grade level, they say, hey, let's try to bring them back in.
Because your most expensive was we have to move them to non-public private,
Correct, those are
right?
usually the most expensive, and some of them will be there until they're 22 years old. There's no doubt that's due to their disability, due to their medical needs, they will be there, and so we'll be.
No, I understand that. I'm actually on a board for adults with disabilities, so I understand post 22, but I don't understand your world.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
And then listed, you'll see just the different costs of the different programs, public school programs, there's a range, collaborative programs like Reed's and North River Collaborative, and then those very expensive non-public private schools. The good news is this year, unlike last year, their increase was more reasonable, about 5%. But last year, I was coming to tell me the rate was 14% set by the state. So we didn't have that increase this year, which is helpful. The next slide talks about school choice. You can see a graph that shows the decreasing numbers. Again, tough to predict because if we can add students reasonably, we will do so. Because ultimately it saves the entire town some money. But we won't do it at the expense of our kids and our staff and our families. Overcrowding. I get emails every single day from families asking me, are you open? A lot of them now have missed the deadline. We've had the most applications ever, over 220. Usually we average around 140, 150. So the numbers are strong, but we just don't have the space. Next slide just shows you some information about school contributions. This information really is pretty consistent year to year. The bulk of our school contributions, the amount of money that the schools contribute and don't ask the town for, comes from school choice. We also have circuit breaker money. It's money reimbursed by the state for special education costs at over a certain threshold. We have revolving accounts like athletic revolving, our surround care program, bring in some money and we use that money to put into the budget, and special education grants are also included.
And how are those grants, sorry, compared to last year? I don't recall the number from last
I
year.
took that slide off. I think they're about the same.
Well, circuit breaker this year was more than previous years,
Okay.
which, and that's the one that was for special education, right? After you spent $45,000 on the student, you get reimbursed a portion of it as a family.
Yeah.
They are actually raising the threshold to $55,000 for fiscal year 25, so we can all probably expect less money this year. But that varies quite often, and back to your question, Cheryl, the reason you may see actual spending less is we're just predicting and guessing what we're gonna receive for special education grants for fiscal year 25. In fiscal year 23, we probably received more than we had expected and budgeted for, so we could offset some of the actual costs.
So a high circuit breaker number means the year before we paid a lot of
Right.
special education. So it's nice to get it, but there's a reason why that number is high. Next just shows a slide on chapter 70. The 10-year trend, we're about 6.9 million through chapter 70 this year. We were up a little over 400,000. The year before, we were up quite a bit, 1.2 million, based on the needs of our students and within the district. We're still well above state minimum, which is $30 per student. That would be an increase of around $35,000. So we're still quite above it, and the needs are based on the needs within the district. That's why the numbers are higher than state minimum.
So so the chapter 70 is going up about 400,000?
Correct, just over
Last year it was
400,000.
1.2, right?
Correct.
Am I remembering that?
You are remembering correct. This slide just shows you contributions to schools over the past 4 years, just a little historical information. You'll see that the Chapter 70 funding has increased. The town portion has stabilized in terms of percentage. That's in the yellow, the biggest section. And our school contributions have gone down mostly due to choice and some of the other grants running out. Again, they've stayed pretty consistent, but I just want to show a historical look at that.
Mm-hmm.
When we look at any budget, I think, school budgets across the board are a little bit unique in that they're a little bit unpredictable. First of all, with students moving in and moving out, we have students aging in, so once they turn 3 years old, we become responsible in our preschool program. So if a student moves in with certain needs and certain placements, we will certainly meet and convene a team to discuss them. But more likely than not, they'll be continuing that placement or a similar placement. As I discussed earlier, school choice, we do predict our numbers to be decreasing. It's always a bit dicey when you see students enrolling over the summer and you're looking at numbers. That's why over the past few years we've waited a little bit on school choice acceptance students until we have a better idea of that.
And what's the count on the English language?
We're about the same. I think we're plus about two to three students. We have our students who are receiving services and the FELs, who are the formerly English language learners. So our number is about the same. It's just a little bit higher. But that is unpredictable as well.
40, you're at?
46.
46.
EL students and 24
24, I'm sorry.
FEL students that we still have to offer some services to, but have moved out of the intense service.
Oh.
I think we're
EL students.
plus 2 over last year.
Yes. Right now, at this point in time, it fluctuates quite a bit.
And depending on the level they're at is the services that we provide them in terms of time with a person, a teacher. And our buildings, obviously our elementary buildings are old. They take up a lot of real estate. They've got old HVAC systems and so forth. So it's just unpredictable. We're not sure when something may go down, but just like your homes, it's fingers crossed that everything continues to work as designed. We're still years away from our building. The positive effects are, we've added positions over the years, which is excellent. Just wanted to share some of the positive things about that. The middle senior high school, we've added an adjustment counselor and a part-time school psychologist. We went from 1 school psychologist to basically 2 school adjustment counselors and a 0.6 school psychologist who only really does testing. That has shown more time with kids, more availability of our staff, less students going out on crisis, more able to meet with students in small groups, lunch bunches, and so forth. So where we've added, we've seen a lot of success. Our ESL staff increasing, we've gone from over the past 4 years 1.5 to 3.7. We've seen about a 32% increase in our number of students over that time. But again, we feel we are properly servicing our students during the time. So again, another positive with the additions we've made. Classroom teachers, next year the only 2 grades in the elementary level that will have 4 sections are kindergarten. Kindergarten, the census number is a little bit lower. And we've added about 10 or so students each year into kindergarten. So we are confident we will have this year 4 kindergarten classrooms. It helps our budget to do this. That grade and next year's grade 5. All the rest will have 6 classes. But again, that helps maintain a reasonable class size. We're adding a teacher to the Howard School this year because our 3rd grade has 119 students. That's going to be going into the 4th grade. So they're going to have, they need a 5th teacher.
You see this staffing, last 3 years, the staffing has increased dramatically.
Yes.
Do you see it starting to level or it's continuing to?
I think, like I said, I think eventually, and it might be as soon as next year, I think we'll have to have a 5th kindergarten and a 5th grade. I think that's something that's going to be dictated by the number of students enrolled, I think we will need some type of special education coordinator or team chair. Right now, we have special education teachers and we have a director of student services, and we have no one in the middle. So it puts a lot on the director of student services to be working with all the special education teachers and the related services people within the district. Most districts have usually an elementary coordinator and a secondary coordinator. It really would benefit our students and our staff to have that level of service. And I think our related services, our speech and language, we added a .1 this year, which I'll talk about in a second. Incrementally, some increase there. I think we're getting, just to answer most, but we're getting to the maintenance stage. I think we've been very fortunate and very thankful we've been able to add positions over the years. We're getting to the point now where I think once we get to the level we can just simply maintain, I think that's going to be a good thing for the district and for the community.
Sure.
I think that was worrying to us, is that we were adding staff without supporting funds. ESSER funds and things were used to add staff.
Right.
And so now we're looking at the budget has to increase to pay those individuals because they're in the group. And that was very worrisome to me last year. And, we have to staff the school appropriately. But I sometimes worry about the way we approach it.
Okay. And you're right. You never want to use grant funding for staff. It's really not the best way to go. And I do remember those saying over the last couple of years that it will come to the point where we're going to need to assume that cost because we need the staff. They were needed. And I think what I wanted to show with this slide is where we have added, I think we've seen a lot of success. Where we want to add this year, hopefully, I think we'll continue that. That's where we get more towards that maintenance phase of,
And when you say success, I mean, you've got to have metrics somewhere that are showing you.
Yeah.
I mean, is that something that's easy for us to understand or the public to understand?
We look at students' IEPs. We look at the times that they need to be seen. We are with the additional services we're putting into the budget. We think those students will be seen, meeting their needs. We've seen fewer students sent out on crisis. I think that's important at the middle, senior, high school. Our EL students have been seen due to the staff. So I think and the class size are remaining relatively small. I mean, I think 22 is good. The 25s are hard.
All that to the public is a challenge. People want to say, well, we got the staff, what are the results?
Right.
And yet somehow to convert that into understandable language is a challenge.
It can be.
So, Mark, why am I remembering? I thought we had 5 kindergarten classes. Did that?
We do this year. Yep, no, you're right. We do this year.
Okay.
Next year, though,
we're expecting to have few.
Correct.
Okay.
Just because we think the numbers are a little bit lower to start with, where they were a year ago, so they're trending a little bit lower.
Okay.
And we're committed not to add school choice to kindergarten. So with that, we feel we can. Again, that's one of the things we said. Where can we look to potentially cut or decrease? Yeah. Because we know we're adding in other places. So we thought let's try there.
So with the staff that we've added in the the additional budget and all that over the last few years, it's gone kind of a lot. So are we seeing like better test scores and we're seeing better results?
I mean, I think we're always striving for excellent test scores. We've started a new literacy program at the elementary level. So I think the results last year were positive in terms of a first year of a program. But ultimately, that's part of that circle is to have the achievement, along with the social emotional needs and meeting all the needs of our students there. I think where we've added a lot of staff is our related services, our special education, because their needs weren't being met. But we also want, obviously, our students to achieve and do well. I mean, if you look at the MCAS scores, all of our students have always passed the MCAS. That's a graduation requirement. I go, that's simply one metric to look at, but our students do well, they achieve, they attend well, they go off to school or continuing their education. So I think in general they're having a very good educational experience, and I think these positions are just adding to that.
Cause they were
Go
saying
ahead.
from the Rotech that, what was it, a third of their students aren't reading at level or something? Like, are we experiencing that kind of?
Reading is an issue, no doubt about it.
I mean, I think we're showing, areas of proficiency across the board. We certainly have areas for improvement when you look at the MCAS
The
scores.
scores, yeah.
But I think we're, performing well. Can we improve? Sure, we can always improve.
Along the same lines, I've been doing a lot of reading, trying to understand more on the special needs side of life. And I've noticed in other parts of the country, because of the complexities of special education and how you determine, and their costs are rising like everyone else, they've gone outside and hired consulting companies to come in and look at the situation, say, are you allocating resources, are you spending correctly? And the main reason they did that in a lot of cases was to appease the public outcry about the rising costs. Is that something you've ever considered doing?
We haven't hired any outside consultants for anything like that. We do have, through the couple of the grants that we're receiving through the state, consultants working with our teachers and our administrators, more for the literacy, but also they're doing a lot of other things, with those workers for the grant. But we haven't really looked outside. I think, I'm sure there's a lot of benefits to it, but there's also a lot of cost
Yeah,
to it.
and I thought about it and said I'd pay it to find out, what the best. Sometimes, what's the old saying? When you're in the frame, it's hard to see the picture.
Yeah.
Sometimes, so.
Well, I know with adults with disabilities, there are lots of hoops you have to go through. There's all kinds of agencies that check you for everything. I don't know if that's the same thing as the school system. You have a bunch of regulatory people that are always auditing you.
I mean, the state.
Well,
We're
the
ultimately
state, but
responsible for
you
the
don't have
state.
other agencies that are,
No.
all right. It's just a question.
Yeah, no, valid.
Yeah, I think their slide says that 32% of their students are reading significantly below grade level. So are we experiencing that here in our, no?
No.
That's good.
They also
kinda
made
scared
an
me.
interesting
Yeah, no,
comment. I don't know if you heard it before, but the superintendent said that they had an absolute commitment to staying in the foundation budget and not going above it. I know we're above the foundation.
Sure, we're on 134%.
But what's the difference between them and us here?
I'm not sure exactly.
I mean,
What they,
they're budgeting to the state's foundation budget, where we're above it, the foundation budget by, I don't know, $1 million or something.
Which most districts
And
are.
they're
And you look
not.
at the.
They're right on it, and that's the commitment. Is that, did I understand?
That's what you said, yeah.
Yeah, they're very different. I mean, a regional,
That's
vocational,
what
where
I'm
they're
trying to
pulling in from
understand
different
is how they
communities.
able to.
I'm not sure how their money comes in. I know it comes in from each of the communities.
Right.
But honestly, I'm not that familiar with
Yeah.
how they get to that total number.
Well, I know
I
it's,
just like to get a
it's-
comment on this.
sure.
If they're only going to foundation budget, maybe that is a reason why they're 30% or 33% of their children aren't reading at level.
Well, that's, I mean, they're
But
at the
that's
high school,
everywhere,
right?
isn't it?
No, not
They're-
here. We don't have students. We
No,
don't
so
have
they're at
30%.
a high school, right?
Yes.
So
they're not
you would hope that the kids, once they get there, they're coming in with.
But it
But
could
who
be a
knows?
track for kids that have difficulty reading to find a trade,
Right.
to be a
That's
path to
Right.
That's
future success.
That's
Yeah.
another
It's a
step, I
different,
suppose,
it's a different model.
And I would
Yeah.
say that, all the vocational technical schools are very competitive now.
Yeah,
Students
yeah.
going into.
And if I could just jump in for a second, because I have the spreadsheet over on my computer here. Our foundation budget per pupil is about 13,400, well, it's not about, it's exactly $13,496 per student. And just give me a second to pull up Southeastern, but it's up over 20,000 per student. So
Yeah.
they're receiving a lot more funding.
Yeah.
So their foundation budget is a lot higher. And if you think about it, it makes sense because they are a
Well, they have
vocational school.
trades,
They have
that's
trades, exactly. And with that comes an increased cost.
Okay. Yeah. It's good to understand the dynamics. right?
Sure.
Okay.
Next
where
slide
are
just
we?
talks a little bit about ESSER funding, the positions that were added in through ESSER. The first two positions, the sub-separate teacher and the special education teacher at Howard School, were existing .5s, and we added a .5. We'll talk a little bit in a minute about the sub-separate program.
What's this
So it's
teacher?
a teacher that's working, pulling students out.
Okay.
So what
Out of the
that's
class.
doing is that's helping us in terms of keeping kids within the district.
Okay.
Students we may have to go out of district, so spending the money for an educator in the classroom is gonna save tuition and transportation.
Mhm.
Stands for substantially separate.
Mhm.
I mean, they spend most of their day in
Yeah.
separate schools.
Adding the 1.0 ESL teacher, again, bring us up to 3.7, and .5 speech and language. So these positions have been paid for out of ESSER for the past couple of years,
Mhm.
but the 184,000 is what we're needing to put back into the budget.
Yeah, the speech and language pathologist, I think you had high hopes for that. Is that working out
It
the way you
is,
would hope?
yeah. For the related services, and we'll talk about OT in a second, but it's the number of students that they're seeing is high.
Mhm.
And they're also doing testing, and they're
Mhm.
also trying to work and see students and go to meetings and so
Yeah.
forth. So very necessary to have that.
Good.
Then some areas of need we have for this year. Again, I mentioned the Howard School classroom teacher, that third grade going to fourth grade. They have 5 sections now. We need to add a fifth.
So do the
section.
kids, do the teachers go with the kids though? Like, so if you had, I don't know, let's say 5 classrooms in the fourth grade and now they're going to fifth, do you move that teacher with
Well,
them?
no, especially if there's a fifth, they'll still have 5 coming into that
Coming
third
in.
grade, so we'll have to add that teacher.
But then don't at some, like if we're down to 4 in kindergarten, does that teacher?
If we
like,
continue with 4, then yes. And
Okay.
for example, we'll be moving a kindergarten teacher right now for the 5. So we'll be moving that teacher somewhere else, presumably at the elementary level.
And you still need one more.
Correct. We have the elementary school adjustment counselor. Right now at the elementary level, we have, we had in this year's budget a school psychologist at the Roselle McDonald, a school psychologist at the Howard School, and that is it. They do testing, they meet groups, they meet kids in crisis individually. Those positions have somewhat changed due to movement this year, but what we're looking to do is add a third person that can also spend time at the Spring Street School, but also be around the other schools in terms of testing. So a third person at the elementary level for almost 800 students. Right now you have 2 people working with about 800 students. Speech and language increasing that 0.5 that we just mentioned up to 0.6, so that goes down from 2.5 days to 3 days a week. Adding a 0.4 occupational therapist. Right now we have 1 OT, occupational therapist, in the district. They have an extremely large caseload. So this person, 2 days, even 2 days a week, would allow a day for testing, a day for meeting with students. It would take a lot off that very overworked person, and I think very beneficial. And 0.5 preschool teacher for a sub-separate program. Due to the needs of our students, we have 2.5 preschool teachers now. We're looking to go to 3 for next year because we'll have a fully sub-separate preschool program. Again, due to just the needs of the students that are coming into preschool.
How's that 207, is that salary only?
Yes.
Or does it capture fringe benefits and everything that goes with it?
Salary. Yeah, just salary only.
So the elementary adjustment, so do the adjustment counselors, they do a lot of testing, do they only test kids when they're little, or do you have?
That's a school
all
psychologist, and they have, reviews, 3-year reviews. We have initial evaluations that they have to do. And I don't think I mentioned that right now, for this year, the elementary school adjustment counselor is paid for out of a grant. We're hoping that the grant is continued. We've emailed and called. They have not, the state has not made a decision, but a behavioral health grant did pay for that position for this year.
Mhm.
So again, we're always looking for ways to fund
Yeah.
ourselves.
So is there testing though throughout their, even in high school and stuff, or is it just when you're little mostly?
Yes.
all the way.
Yeah. Yep, it follows them all the way up. The testing tends to be a little heavier in the elementary level because that's where students are identified more often. So it does start to kind of taper down as kids get older, but every child that's eligible for special education needs to be reevaluated every 3 years. So if they are on a special education plan through high school, that's every 3 years they need to be tested.
The next slide just captures where the major increases are, just to give you an idea through additional staffing, teaching services. So those are our contractual raises, not only the COLA, but the step and track. So teachers will move down each year, and depending on what education level they get to, they may be moving over the salary grid. Special education has shown an increase, and again, that's a tough number to come to because we're looking at, potentially will a student go out? Are we sure they're going out? Are we 50-50 they may go out? Could a student come back? So there is a lot of flexibility there and a lot of unknowns. And you can see the ESSER and the school choice cliff. So that equals up to our 6.93% increase over last year. And then the next slide shows you just our total budget, which minus out our school contributions, which are about $2.6 million, gives you the FY25 subtotal, and then you see the money over last year. If you look at the moving out ESSER and the school choice numbers, that 6.93 goes down to 5.66%. Our goal, we're hoping we were 7.78% last year, 6.93. Looking at the 5.66, we hope we're trending in a more appropriate and reasonable way. But again, we're going to continue to discuss the needs that we have for our students.
Yeah, I mean, it's trending in the right direction, but it's still concerning.
It's a lot.
Town's growing. What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Well,
We need the revenue to grow
Well,
just as
how
fast.
many, so when we think about the
You're
pool
gonna have it when
students,
those houses
has
get
that
built.
gone up? in total?
We've gone up only a few this year,
Can't
but we've
keep
lost
blaming it on-
some of our choice
we need
students.
to have it.
So we're up about, only a few students from last year overall.
Yeah.
But we think that number is going to increase over the next couple of years.
Questions on this budget? Other than what we've already used? As we went around.
Well, we appreciate it, support. We know we're a department of the town, but we're always looking to, work for the needs of our students. We're not asking for anything we don't need within our budget. And we think it really meets the needs of our kids and our staff and the town. Because we want to provide the best education possible.
Yeah. Appreciate that.
All right.
Thank you
Thank you.
so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
it.
Appreciate it.
Have a good evening.
Have a good night. Did you steal mine or did I steal yours? Or what
This
happened
is
here,
it.
Mo?
For you. Thank you for all you've
I
done.
know, thank you, Donna.
Oh, are you getting off the committee? Oh, well, thank you for everything you've done.
Thank you for your service.
Nice.
Wow.
You're welcome to come again,
All right, thank
which I doubt you
Take
will.
care. What else do we have?
That's a
my
lot
friend?
of data.
So we just have to
to
slow into
digest.
7.
Oh, my head's spinning.
I lost my agenda somewhere in this pile of paper.
Going back to our,
No stealing my budgets. I'm gonna watch him.
extra if you want.
I stole it.
I know. Jeez,
It's in here
Louise.
somewhere.
I'm sure it
sharing
is.
is caring.
Yeah, it's a good thing I like you, Mo. We're getting a fist fight over here. All right, so
What do we have?
hit us. What else do we have here?
Yeah, so I'll do as you know, I do all the smaller budgets, and
Yeah.
at the end, I just want to do a quick overview for you as well.
All right, so do you want to go moderator?
Yeah,
That
so I'll
way
start
we
the
first?
moderator, but I am
Okay.
going to handle the Board of Selectmen at the end, 'cause there's
Okay.
a couple of items to discuss with that. So with the moderator budget, again, small budget, we'll level fund it from that $788, no real change year over year.
Okay.
Finance Committee, obviously this committee, we will level fund it at 3,100.
Did you spend any money? $300.
Just the meeting notes, I think we spend, right?
Correct.
And then maybe a dues in
That is
the
correct.
finance committee people.
I'm all for the minutes.
Yes,
Secretarial work.
You are?
I'll pay myself.
Pay anything for that, any amount of money.
Any amount of money.
The finance committee reserve, we have level funded that at 67,000. We
Yeah,
already
how
spent
much
any
did
money.
we use last year? Did we
No.
use any of it? No? Oh, that's great. So this goes to free cash.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay. But we gotta have it in case we need it.
Yeah.
That is correct.
Got it.
And we have not increased that in years.
Yeah, I know. It's been the same since I started.
Insurance is, I'm budgeting about a 5% increase. Again, we pay for insurance for all buildings throughout the entire town.
Now, the fleet insurance, is that like cars, right?
Yes.
Do you think 5%'s, I mean, mine went up like a lot and I didn't really, I mean, we have no accidents or anything, but do you think
Yeah,
5%
mine
is
did.
sufficient?
So I haven't received in all the final quotes yet because our premium is July through June. So
Mhm.
think about it, you don't get a premium 4
Yeah.
months in advance.
Right.
So all I can do is speak to the broker.
Mhm.
But what I would call your attention to is that you will see that on the fleet insurance is that last year we spent 80,000 and we approved 96.
Oh, okay.
So I always have a
You
buffer
got a little
because
extra.
what I do is that in order, think about it, with all, there are two items about fleet. We have a lot of vehicles, I don't remember off the top of my head, but 75, 85 cars or so.
Yeah.
Between fire, police, there are a handful at school, DPW, and, a couple of cars here,
Mhm.
COA, the vans. So not only do we have a high number of vehicles,
Yeah.
they're also considered under insurance purposes as high risk for
Mm.
obvious reasons.
Right.
So, I keep the insurance budget down because I do higher deductibles.
Oh, yeah.
We don't have a lot of accidents, so that's why I'm able to keep the premium down, because if you take that premium, and I do this every single year, I divide it, last year it cost us around $1,600 a car.
Okay.
You're not paying much different than that, right? And again, that's including $1 million fire truck, or
Right.
a $300,000 ambulance,
Yeah.
or a police car that's always getting bumped or
Yeah.
bumping.
Right.
So I do that to keep the costs down,
Mm.
and I need to have some room there in case I have to pay out some deductibles.
Deductibles,
Because I don't carry just a $500 or $1,000 deductible.
Yeah.
My minimum deductibles on fleet are $5,000. So a couple of incidences, I could spend $15,000 pretty fast.
Yeah.
So I have to keep that in reserve,
Okay.
but it also keeps our costs down.
Okay. And also, but even the building stuff, same approach?
Correct. So I have pretty high deductibles. Some of them are 5,000, but they can range up to $25,000.
Yeah.
And again, when you think about it, we are insuring about $100 million worth of buildings.
Mm.
And most of those obviously coming out of the school department.
Yeah.
But $100 million, all we're spending is, $100,000, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
$208,000 for our entire, it's actually pretty cheap.
Yeah.
When you break it down, what we're actually getting for value.
So we feel like the 5% does
Catastrophic.
cover it?
Yeah,
Situation.
I'm hoping so, because
Okay.
again, I have built-in reserves.
Okay.
1 year, we may have, you're right, if we have, if we have a major storm that comes through. I wrestle with this every year. I carry minimum earthquake insurance, for example, and you would laugh, but the reality is we are on a fault and we just haven't been hit.
Yeah.
So I carry minimum insurance on that because I feel in today's day and age is that it's very likely that we live in a culture that if a town gets hit, is that FEMA or the federal government usually steps in.
Mm.
So I'm rolling the dice,
Mm.
thinking that most likely that's what they would
Yeah,
happen.
be glad you're not in Vermont though.
Well,
They just get turned down.
they did, and that's been a recent phenomenon.
Yeah.
But a handful of years, Munson was hit by those tornadoes, and they received funding.
Right.
So again, I think that's a recent phenomenon because right now Leominster was just turned down as well, and you see the governor is appealing that. So
I don't know how they turn on. Hit those shots. Oh.
So anyway, so that's what the
Okay.
insurance is, sealer of weights and measures. I've level funded it, however, we have provided 3% increase to all of our appointed officials / contracts, so we just didn't put that in, so I will make that adjustment when I vet the budgets at the end. Historical Commission is level funded at 1775, and our benefits, which is almost entirely non-discretion, is up about 6%. That is mostly driven from the retirement line, because you can see that's up about 9%. The negative is that it's a big number on a big number, so that's a big driver. But I want you to remember, these are legacy retirement contributions. This is not current employees, because we all self-fund. So the theory is that by 2033, which I know sounds like a long wait, but this is FY25. That's only 8
Right.
years. That number will reduce by millions of dollars, because all those legacy employees will come off. So I'm trying to make sure everybody's aware, like, I don't pay Social Security. You pay Social Security at 6.25%. I instead pay 9%, and then anything over 30,000, we pay an additional 2%. So we're paying 11%. In the private sector, you're paying 6%, and the employee's paying 6%. So it's right. So the employee pays 0 at this level. Up until 1988, when they did pension reform, most people were only paying 2% and 3%. That's what you're carrying, is all of those older legacy ones, and then it's been revamped again through the years. So as those people truthfully die off, in they're building reserves with this amount, is that around 2033 is that we should, in theory, start to actually see most of that come off, and there would only be administrative costs.
This includes all town employees,
Yes.
teachers,
Yes.
everything.
That's correct.
So the
So
health,
when the school adds someone, does this number change a lot?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I wonder what percentage that is.
So they make up about 60% of our staffing. So about 60% of your numbers, for example, for health insurance will come out of the school.
So they get a flat salary, but then you gotta add another, what, 20%, 30%?
Well, it all depends, because obviously if you pick the single versus the family, most people at the school are more family than they are single. But yeah, I have to take that into account. So again, you will see, if you look at that benefits line, is that you will see that there is,
Health insurance.
if you look at the health insurance line, you will see that I am budgeting 4.1 million, 4.5% increase, because that was our increase year over year. But the previous year, we had spent 3.1 and we'd approved 3.9. That delta or difference is because I am budgeting for about 90% of our employees to help. I am budgeting for 100% of our employees to take health
Half of them.
insurance. It's a requirement of the law.
Right.
At any time, somebody can walk in.
Right.
So I have to budget for it, but as you can see, about 90% of our staff actually takes it. So as long as that number stays at that number, I have that built-in buffer. But if tomorrow comes, I have to make sure I have the money.
So when we see staff increasing, like at the school, when he shows us, this is the total number increasing, that only captures a part of what the town's gonna pay, doesn't it? Why don't we show that so that the town can say, well, wait a minute, it's not 200,000, it's 400,000?
I mean, I think you
It
can.
doesn't double.
Huh?
Because it doesn't double.
no, but it's,
No, I'm just
I mean,
saying, but
the
it
fringe
goes
is
up.
20,
It's up.
30%, I think, right?
So I think, in fairness to the school, remember, they're a department like everybody else.
Right.
So last year, we added a couple of firefighters. And we didn't say at that time, okay, what's the fringe benefits, and let the
Right.
fire chief not decide.
Right.
So it's an apples to apples comparison when we do that. But that's exactly what this committee is for, is to be able to ask those questions and flush it out so you understand it
Right.
in case somebody at town meeting does ask. There has been some residents in town that say we should take all of these benefits, get rid of this benefits budget, and put it to each entire budget. So that way you can see actually what the real cost
That's
is. in
kind
the
of what I
entire
was
budget.
saying, yeah.
There are a handful of municipalities that do that, but it's actually not the more favorable approach. Because then what's gonna happen is you're going to have some departments that are gonna say, you know what, I don't wanna use this health insurance, I'm gonna try to go out and do a different health insurance. It will become chaos.
They're
The
trying
other-
to float
the other
their
part-
own contract,
The other part you have to understand that unique to the municipal sector is that we have collective bargaining agreements.
Right.
So a police chief can't just come in and say, you know what, since I have health insurance in mind, we're getting rid of it, we're gonna bring this in, and all of a sudden deductibles skyrocket. Well, the union isn't going to accept that, and then that has to be renegotiated. And by state law, that negotiation is with me and the Board of Selectmen. So it would literally be chaos is if you did it and you showed it in every single budget. The last part, just to answer, sorry, the last part is, I do think that it's good for all of you in this room and every resident to see what your real benefits cost is.
Yeah.
Because if you put in every single budget, it would be almost nearly impossible unless you spent a lot of time.
Ferret it out, yeah.
Correct. So I do think that this is a little bit more transparent.
So, no, that's okay. So the health insurance line, you'll have enough in here to cover the new staff that they plan to add in the school or anywhere else in town, and any increase that we expect from Blue Cross or whoever we have for insurance. Well, I mean, I know it's self-funded, but still.
I'm close enough, yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure we,
You should, but again, I mean, and truthfully,
Yeah, I mean-
if every single person came in and every single person jumped on the family
Yeah.
plan and we hired a couple of staff, I would probably be a little bit short.
Okay.
Right? But it's never happened.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but remember, on a family plan, the town side is around $20,000. So at 67 grand, that's 3 people.
Mm.
I mean, that's a pretty
That's-
fast.
yeah, it does.
So that's why in this, like every once in a
Yeah.
while, I have somebody say, "Why are you carrying $700,000 or $800,000?" Because quite frankly, 10 people is $200,000.
Yeah, that's a ton of money.
I have 50 people right now that do not take it. That's $1 million.
Yeah.
So I don't have $1 million.
Yeah.
You've tried to get people to go on the other plan too, haven't you?
Well, I keep on discussing about having an incentivized plan to have people come off, and I'm really married to it.
Yeah.
I
do
really
that
want.
where I work.
I really want to do that. I received some pushback from some people because some people can't come off of it, and others that are in the 15% or 10% that are not on it are going to receive nothing. And so, there's some conflict.
Mm.
They receive nothing. I mean,
The point is this: is that if Scott is on our insurance,
right.
and he's paying $10,000 a year out of pocket
Right.
for a family,
Right.
and I offer him a $6,000 incentive to come on. He's going to go on his wife's insurance in theory.
Yeah.
We save $6 grand, so it's fantastic.
Right.
He's happy. His family is happy.
Yeah.
You do not take insurance from us. And your first question to me is, why
How
don't I
come
get
you're not
$6
paying
grand?
me?
I see.
Yeah.
I've been saving
I
your
never
money
did.
for 10 years.
Yeah, yeah,
Why don't I get incentivized for not taking it the last 10
Mm-hmm.
years?
I get
So
it.
there's some conflict there.
Mhm.
Now, others, let's face it, just say sorry.
Mhm.
I mean, I'll give you an example, like at the federal level, where they're waiving student loan debt. There are plenty of parents out there that have said, "Hey, I financed my house,"
Mhm.
and the federal government has said, "Sorry,"
Yeah.
right? And apparently, some people think that that's an acceptable answer. So that would have to be our answer. But I'm not so sure in either case I like saying it.
No.
But that would
I
have to.
don't think you'd be too popular.
No, but ultimately, that is the only way that it works.
Yeah.
And so I've been loath to try to put that in, trying to be sensitive to everybody.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Capital budget, is there a sheet in here for capital budget?
No.
I didn't see one.
No.
Why don't I do this? I will place the capital budget sheet on your next meeting.
Okay.
Let's see. Jim, you were there. Is there anything you want to discuss in reference to it?
I wasn't there.
Oh, that's right. You weren't there
Yeah.
during the vote.
We
were.
So I'm sure you were there.
I already talked to Scott.
Yeah.
He said everything went through.
You did.
The only thing that I was concerned about was the lawnmower for the water department, and I was told it wasn't a problem.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
we did that homework.
So
Um,
can
I don't see how you couldn't.
talk about that a little bit? Like
Sure.
what was on the budget? What was asked for?
I didn't bring it. Do
What's
you have
that?
it with you, Scott?
so why don't I do this?
I don't know what the total number was. I never knew.
Let me do this. Why don't we just take a 2-minute break? Let me
Okay.
go make a photocopy of it. I'll bring it downstairs, and that way all of you will not only see the numbers, but you'll also see the vote and what the final tally is.
That would be great,
So excuse me
if
for
you
1
don't
minute.
mind. Thank you. Yeah, do you wanna do a motion to adjourn for a few minutes?
Motion to adjourn.
to recess.
Motion to recess, sorry.
Recess.
Second.
We get to go
All
out and
those in
play ball.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. Can we
Aye.
shut down over there? Okay, so we're back on. We have the capital budget requests.
So these are all, you'll see, what everybody requested, what the amount was. What the capital budget committee did is that except for the water treatment plant at the water department, because obviously it's such a large number, everything else will be paid for with cash, either through free cash or water surplus. So there'll be no debt or interest on that. In the total town side would be a little over $1 million for all departments, and for the water side, obviously it's a big number, but 99% of that is from the water treatment plant at 10.7 million.
Okay.
So any questions I can answer in reference to the projects themselves.
What's the digital sign?
The digital sign is that we have a communications committee that Jeff Ryan, when he became elected, he wanted to start, and there's about 8, 9, 10 people on that committee, including myself. And what he really wants to do is he wants to make sure that we can adequately communicate with all of our residents. And one of the items that we're lackluster on is that whenever we have elections, we put out these old pizza signs, and obviously, they're not great, especially
The
if it's
wind blows
windy.
them over.
Exactly. So we want to put a digital sign out similar to the school or the police department or the transfer station. Put a sign out here, and that way we can adequately communicate better with our residents.
Okay. Street sweeper?
That's your traditional DPW sweeper. The one that's out there now is about 22 years old, and they've done a good job because it's lasted 22 years, but it's tired, it's old, and it's rusty.
I thought we bought all new plows
This is just
a few
replacing.
years ago.
So this one here, we did. So this is replacing one of them in the fleet. This truck has 180,000 miles on it, and it is 1997. Do you remember the year, Scott?
Something, it was pre.
It's old.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
pre-2000.
But I
That's
thought
25 years old.
we
But
didn't
we got it for
replace-
DP.
We didn't replace them all
No,
the time?
not at all.
Oh, okay.
No.
Exhaust reel?
So that's when the mechanic works in the service bay, because
Oh.
obviously if you close the doors, so right now what they do is they run a hose under the door outside, but if it's cold, it's still, then you're just driving up costs. So this will be more like, if you remember, a few years ago, we did this over at the fire department, and so it'll be similar to that.
And why do we need a culvert on Grand Street?
So,
You haven't driven over?
you know what, Jim, you can
Yeah,
I
handle
don't
we'll
know
that
get
where
one.
Grand Street is.
Right next
You
to
don't even
Ellen's
know
house.
what Grant Street is.
Right next to Ellen's house.
So,
Drive over it. You'll have your teeth shattered.
yeah, so.
It's a junk. The road's junk.
Yeah, so we have to do is we have to engineer for it. There's two issues, and you'll see the picture at town meeting. We've taken up it's the bridge. We call it a bridge, but it's not legally a bridge. It doesn't qualify because it's too small in the DOT rules and regulations. It's literally held up by masonry stonework, and when you see the stone, you're gonna kind of laugh. You're like, I can't believe I keep driving over that. So two items. One is we want to make sure that that's safe, so that has to be re-engineered. And part of that also is that the stream runs down from North Elm, down through Grant, under that culvert and behind Tiffany. And because of the way that culvert is established, is set up, that all has to be re-engineered because the water's not flowing, it's backing up into those properties. But it's a real safety concern with where the culvert is.
So Grant Street, if you're going towards Frida's from the
Yeah.
cemetery,
Oh, I
before you
have,
get to Frida's, take that left and go to North Elm, that's Grant Street.
I know where Grand Street is. I don't remember names very well.
And the lift is just that way the mechanic has another lift to be able to lift the vehicles.
Okay, personal protective equipment for the fire department, jaws of life rescue tools. I'm assuming we're replacing what we have.
That's very
very old, a new cruiser, LVP flooring.
So the,
Yeah, so it's the flooring when you go into the house. Again, Council of Aging.
House of Behold.
I know, so don't bring that up again. No, don't bring that up again. But when you go in, that foyer where you go
Oh,
right
yeah.
in and it kind of opens up
Yeah.
there, it's pretty much covering all of that with the exception of inside the
Okay.
restrooms. And they had some pictures, Mel was showing pictures of the floor was cracked and kind of, it's raised a bit, so it's caused people to slip.
Yeah,
Some
not
person
good.
actually really got hurt, so
Yeah,
for
not
the,
good.
the age, it's already 20 years old. It made a lot of sense to go forward with that.
Heavy equipment trailer, utility trailer.
Water department.
Lawnmower. The water department has a lawnmower?
They
The DPW doesn't cover that stuff?
We said the same thing, so we did. We had an in-depth conversation of that, but it sounds like around those water towers, years ago, there was kind of a decision made that water department will take care of that, and Chris and those groups have plenty of other places that they need to do. The one that they had bought a few years ago, I want to say 10 years ago, we'll pretend that's 10 years ago, was a finishing mower, which
Yes.
Cheryl told us they probably didn't want a finishing mower. They probably wanted more of a rough mower to go around it. So it's really just replacing it. And we did the same thing. We're like, can't we just buy it for folks that are cutting the grass, but they've got enough to go on, so it just made plenty of sense to do
Is this like a stand-up commercial mower?
I think it's a little heavier than a stand-up
It's a
commercial.
rider mower.
It's a brush mower.
It's a rider, isn't it,
I
David?
believe it's a rider.
Yeah.
It's a rider mower, yeah.
Okay. Chromebooks. We're replacing every Chromebook in the school?
No, these Chromebooks are for the staff. We did replace them all for the students, using federal dollars a few years ago. The staff has been using, PCs, and so they're gonna be going to Chromebooks.
They're actually saving quite a bit of
Huge.
dollars
Yeah.
by going to Chromebooks instead of buying laptops for everyone.
Laptops is one.
Yeah.
Okay. Copiers. We don't lease copiers, we buy them?
Much
Together,
better,
these?
yeah, absolutely.
Alright.
So that's capital
So
budget.
everybody voted for everything. Fine.
They did. They did. I mean, there was some lively conversation. It wasn't. It didn't only last 10 minutes, but yeah,
Yeah.
there was some lively conversation about it. But again, I think that we're fortunate. We don't only just have really talented department heads in all of our departments. They don't ask for unreasonable stuff and have to wish lists.
Yeah, I
So-
mean, I feel like that, every time I ask about these vehicles, like, oh, it's a 1997, it's a 1990, they keep, seem like they keep most of them for a while.
We just said we had about 75 vehicles, so.
Right. Right.
And I think they could probably ask for more. I think they're trying to make sure they only ask for what the true need is.
Yeah, which is good. So we have free cash to cover all this except for the big, iron removal plant. Which is good.
And the budget's coming together.
Yeah, so I have to do the Board of Selectmen budget,
Yeah.
because I didn't do that yet, because I have one disclosure and one adjustment we're gonna look to.
Yeah.
And then we'll have a conversation about where we are in the budget process. So first things first, on the Board of Selectmen's budget, I, met with the board last night, and we went over this. There is one.
Can I say one thing, sorry, before we go? Thank you guys for doing the capital budget stuff and reviewing all that and recapping it here. So, sorry.
No worries. So there's an error in the budget. It's my error, and so I disclosed it to the selectmen last night, and I wanted to make sure I disclosed it to this, to the finance committee last night, today as well. Is that under appointed official, which is me, 5111, the FY 25 request is accurate. It looks like it's a 6% increase. However, the salary line that was used last year is inaccurate. Everybody received a 3% increase this year. That's all I'm receiving as well. But that should have been 170 instead of 165. I have no explanation as to where that number came from. I don't know what happened. It's just a good old-fashioned error. It's on my part. It's nobody else's fault. So that means that the entire budget should have only been up 2.49% instead of 3.71%. So I had a conversation with the board about it, so I put them on notice and obviously apologized to them. I also had a conversation with Jan, so that way she was aware. because ultimately the budget that goes to town meeting is the finance committee's handbook. Right? That's your budget I put together for you. So you have to make a decision as to what you want to do. We are not voting on last year's budget. We vote on this year's budget. And so 99, look, I've worked in 3 towns and talked to a lot of other towns. Very few towns show last year's budgets or the actual from the previous year. You always do it at the finance committee because you have to see it. But usually because you're only voting on that current year's budget, that's what goes to town meeting. We're much more transparent, not arguing anything against it, but obviously it's being disclosed. So it is your handbook. You guys can make a decision. You'll have to direct me as to what you want me to do. Is that I can either change that number to 170 to reflect what the actual number was. So we are disclosing to town meeting this year that it's a real 3% increase. The positive to that is that you are adequately informing the town that it's only a 3% increase, and that way they can see the real difference. The negative to that is the fact that that's not the number that was actually approved at last year's meeting. Again, I want to leave it to you because it's your committee's decision. As to what you want to do.
Can we call it a posting error?
Well, it is a posting error.
Yeah,
is,
I
yeah.
know, so.
It's just an error. And
Yeah.
But is there a ramification, are there any ramifications?
No, because this is
Yeah.
information that's provided so that way people
Yep.
can see what it is year over year.
I mean, it's the actual salary, it's what was paid, it was what was negotiated, it's just that it was a misprint on the form, right? Essentially.
So it's, unfortunately, there is nothing more complicated than just a stupid, silly error. And
right.
look, I've been here for 11 years. Last year was my 10th budget. One every 10 years, I hope, is what I cap it at. It's sensitive.
I
because-
think we fix it and move on, and
Well-
we're not voting on this, we're voting on, the 25 budget.
So,
What do other people think?
It's not an issue,
Yeah.
as far as I'm
David,
concerned.
do what you feel comfortable with.
but it's not David Gagney's handbook, it's the
I
finance
support
committee.
what you feel comfortable with.
So,
As a taxpayer, I want you to be honest with the people.
well, that's what I'm doing. That's
So-
why last
There you
night
go.
was on camera.
If you
tonight's
feel
on camera.
comfortable with doing it
Um,
the right way, then do it the right way, and we'll take it from
Do
there.
we need a motion?
No, we're not voting.
well,
Or do you have to have a motion before you can
I
vote?
mean, I would rather take direction, if it's the finance committee's handbook, I'd rather take direction from the finance committee, and I'll put in whatever number you think we should, and then, we don't discuss last year's numbers at town meeting, but if
Right.
somebody asks the question, all of us then can answer to it, and obviously it's my fault, I'll say what I'm saying now. But I don't want there to be any secrets, and I don't want anyone to think that it's anything more than just a mistake.
So would you be comfortable if we made a motion and then voted on it, or?
I would, and it doesn't matter to me what you do,
Okay.
I would just wanna make sure I'm doing what the finance committee wants me to do.
So do we have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to adjust the number to reflect reality.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Well, thank you for that.
Fix it, and move on.
So that way it shows a real difference, and again, the overall budget would be up 2.49%.
Okay.
I'm gonna ask you to I'm gonna call your attention to line 5730, which is dues and
Okay.
meetings. You'll see that we budget $5,050. In the last actual year, we spent a little over 4,000.
Mm-hmm.
But you'll also see this year, we're already at 3,100, and that was through December.
Mm.
Oh.
So the difference is, and this is quite frankly what I'm actually really excited about, is that we have a couple of board members, Jeff and Mike, that are taking now some statewide professional development courses and going to some seminars.
Wow.
As Jeff said last night, he's the senior member, and he's been
Already.
there for 9 months.
Yeah.
So before, when you had a lot of historical knowledge there,
Yeah.
they've been there a long time.
Right.
So prior to that, it was chiefly Anthony that would take advantage of it, and not everybody else would. And we have presumably, because it's an uncontested race, one person coming on that has indicated as well that she would like to be able to take some classes because she'll be new.
Should she be
So,
elected?
There
Or
will be
even
enough
if-
money to allow everybody to do that. And I think as a town, we should applaud the fact that
Oh,
they want to do
absolutely.
that. So
Yeah.
what I would like to do, because it's a little bit of a moving target, but I asked the board last night and the board agreed, was to increase that by $1,500.
Sure.
It'd be
we-
6,100?
That's correct, 6150, I think. So you'll see that at the next, meeting,
Okay.
is that I'll make that adjustment, but that's the reason why. And
That
again,
makes sense.
you know,
Well,
I
your
do think
people
it
who are
makes sense.
leaving your town, you actually want them to have the
Understand
information
the rules,
that
right?
empowers them
Yeah.
to
Right.
feel confident.
So we'll make that adjustment, and then all I want to do at this point is to say thank you to all of you, because whether you realize it or not, you have now seen every single budget in town.
Wow,
Your budget hearings are done.
great.
There is not a single budget line that has not come before you, whether it's a large budget or a small budget, and every department head has been in front of you as well, except for the smaller departments that I handled. So congratulations on that. Your next meeting will be on April 4th. So, on April 3rd, which is a Wednesday, between now and then, I will be compressing all of this data, and I will be presenting a balanced budget to the Board of Selectmen with a recommendation for approval. They will then approve a budget, and then that budget will come to you on that Thursday night, April 4th.
April 4th.
You will then be voting on that night, as you traditionally do. You go through budget line by line, and you'll approve, you'll go through it, and you'll vote, and then that'll be your ultimate recommendation to town meeting. And then that will go into the Finance Committee book. There'll be 3 columns. There will be the original department head salary, department head request. There will be the Board of Selectmen approved budget, and the Finance Committee recommended budget to town meeting, and that is the budget that the town moderator will then read. So you'll be doing that at your next meeting. Your following meeting after that, you will then be voting on warrant articles. You'll be making your recommendations. That will be on the capital budget items. So we give them to you early, so that way you have time to think or look at it. or
What day
whatever.
is that?
And so that would be on April 18th. And so you will vote on warrant articles, the zoning articles, you'll vote, make recommendations on all of those at that time. And then from there, as staff, we then turn it over to the printer, and on May 6th, which is gonna come pretty quick, will be a town meeting. And during that period of time, you'll also approve a picture, and Jan will have to write a message.
Yeah,
Um,
when do we talk about that at next meeting?
Yep, so we usually place it on for the April 4th meeting,
Yeah.
and you'll do one of two things. Either you'll have an initial draft, or you'll talk about it amongst the committee members, and they normally vote to allow you to write a draft, and then the last meeting, you guys can take a look at it. You can't really write a full draft before, because you don't have an approved budget yet. And you want to have not approved any of your warrant, or recommended any of your warrant articles. So that's why a lot of times, you'll have most of it done,
Yeah.
but on that last
Put the
meeting,
numbers in,
the
right?
committee gives you discretion to make some changes to it, and then you turn it into me, and I give it to the printer.
I was just looking for a balanced budget.
I can't answer the question. Every year you ask me that
I
question at
do.
this time.
10 years I've
And,
asked it.
And look, I try to be fair to the town, and this is how my approach is. And I can tell you definitively, other towns do it differently. What they do is that they total up all of their receipts, they max out their 2.5%, they tell all the department heads, and I'll just make up a number. We have $1.8 million to spend, and we're not gonna go over it, so you guys kind of stay within that.
Yeah.
I hate that approach, because it's similar to telling your child,
Yeah.
I know you need a jacket, here's $100, and they usually come back with a $100 jacket. right?
$100. Where do you get a jacket for
Well,
$100?
it's an analogy.
Sweatshirt costs.
Here's what's really funny, is that usually you have 2 children, you give them both $100, one comes in with a $20 jacket and pockets the 80, and the other one spends
Yeah,
$200
right.
and is asking for more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But in any event,
Yeah.
I don't like doing that, because I think that the approach that I take when I do this, I want to really know what their wants and needs are. And I don't want to be prejudiced because I don't of how much money we have to spend. So I will actually, next week, I will close my door and work late nights, and I will go through every single budget line, and I will know what's real and what's not real, if that's the right terminology, and then total it all up, and then start doing my revenues, and hopefully balance, and if not, then you have to start making tougher decisions.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense.
And that's what will get turned in to the selectmen the following week, and then to you that following night.
Right on schedule.
Okay,
Excellent.
so next meeting 4/4. Any other? Anything? No? Okay,
I don't think so.
motion to,
Motion to adjourn.
thank you,
I'll second it.
thank you. All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Thank you.